Welcome to episode 3 on the Aussie podcast. Today, joined with Sam from Stick Hunters.
Hello.
How are we feeling? What's it like just joining on a podcast? Is this a first for you?
Yes, it is. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but it's the first one, so I'm excited. I'm trying to control myself because I can talk a lot.
Oh, no, we love it. There's nothing worse than a podcast that no one says anything.
Yeah, so I'm the right person.
You talk away. I'm so ready for it. Um, One of my favorite kind of things to ask is if your business had a signature song, what would it be?
What would be? What would be? I think it needs to be Hard Day's Night from by the Beatles, because it's hard, but it's fun at the same time. It's worth it. That's why we do it. Some days you say, I'm not doing this anymore, but then you just take a deep breath, have a coffee, and just keep going.
Yeah. Okay. And then this is a couple of quick fire
Yeah.
questions. So, what is your go to adventure spot right now?
Ooh, adventure spot. I don't know. It changes with my mood.
Mm,
What do we go? I just go. I like doing things. As long as we are doing something, we'll leave the house because otherwise I have two young boys and get chaos. And yeah, we just came back from camping on the weekend. We've got a little caravan, so we went to test it out, and it's the most amazing time.
oh, so
Nobody wanted to
fun.
come back home on Sunday. Everybody was depressed because they need to come back home. But yeah, it was good.
Yeah. It's still like that once you're out and exploring, it's like, oh well, I've got to go to like normalcy now and
Yeah, I was like, oh, really? It's so
yeah,
short. It was just 3 days. But yeah, we
yeah.
might go on the weekend, go out for another little trip on the weekend again.
Yes. Oh, that'll be fun. Okay. And what has been the most treasured hand-me-down your kids have ever worn?
Ooh, what was that? That's a good question. So I'll tell a story of a box. We live in New Zealand, right? And it's pretty cold. So I bought a few merino, the wool, New Zealand wool thing for my son. So we saved that. And I saved for my second son, and I pass on to my friends, and they pass on to their friends. So I think we have passed that box to 8 kids now, you know.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and then some of them like just get like really worn out. So and then the new mom puts something new there, and the box just keep going around. So I have a friend the other day, she texted me saying, "Where is the merino box?" Because she's pregnant, and I was like, "Oh, I'll track it down." So yeah, so I think it didn't come to my kids, but it started with my kids, and now has been to a lot of kids' friends, and I think that's the beauty of good quality things. You just pass it on and keep using like to more than one kids. That's how I think we should. Um, you should everything should be should last longer than one kid or one season
Mm,
or
yeah. And it's kind of like something to say that like all those pieces they will hold so much more memories, like they're going and they're living with each
to
of
this
these
kid.
kids
Yeah,
as they have little adventures, as they see life.
yeah.
And then it's like the storytelling. Did you ever see that movie, like the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants?
No. Ooh, we're gonna
Yeah,
have to
well,
write down.
yeah. It's like these teen girls as they're like going off to college, I think. Anyway, they buy these pair of jeans that magically fits them all, and then they send it off. And
Ah,
their adventures. And the whole premise of the movie, well, it's also a book as well, but the premise of the movie is like the stories that each of these the pants
So
saw
yeah,
girls, and I think it's the same kind
it
of
is,
thing.
yeah, and it's nice when you see like the photos of your kids, your friends' kids wearing that, and it brings you
Mm,
memory when your my son's almost
yeah,
8 now was wearing that, and it's quite special. I like the idea of the box that keeps giving.
yeah, it's beautiful. All right, now I would love for you to tell us a bit about your story and your journey in creating stick hunters.
Okay, so let's start far away from here. So husband and I, we are both from Brazil. And in 2000, well, I visited New Zealand when I was a teenager and I love it. And then I went back to Brazil, went to university, met my husband. And then when we finished university, we decided to move to New Zealand. We couldn't get a visa to go to New Zealand, so we spent 6 months in Sydney. And then we got a visa to go to New Zealand. And so we arrived in New Zealand end of 2010. And then 2015 we started trying for a baby, and then didn't happen until in December 2016. And then we had some complications on the beginning of the pregnancy, so I didn't buy anything until I was halfway through. I was 18 weeks. And when I went to buy the clothes, I was very excited to, being a new mom, you want to buy everything. But most of the things were so plain. They were like the prints were like baby animals, dinosaurs. I knew there was a boy, so it was dinosaurs and trucks and grays and blues. And I was like, it's a bit boring. We could do better. I found a few pieces that I really like, but most of them I just bought because I need clothes for the baby. Um, and then I think Gus was like 8 months old. I found Australia brand that I really like it. And then I started buying from them. And one day, and I remember like, oh, that's something that must be really nice. I was thinking like to design, baby clothes because they have really nice prints. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, and then I started buying from them. And then one day they had a big sale and I put a big order. I remember Gus was not even one, and I placed order up to size 4. Um, but then they closed down and they never sent me anything. They just disappeared from the face of the earth. And then I remember like, oh, maybe it's a sign that I should start something. My brain's always full of ideas. Um, but um, I remember when I went to maternity leave, I thought that, I want to I started thinking about having my own business to have more time, spend more time at home and not having a baby. Before, I thought that, new moms would sit at home the whole day watching Netflix, and, the baby would be sleeping, and I would have so much free time to do all my crafts because I'm a very crafty person. But then I had a baby and I realized that it's much harder than you think, that the moms don't sit there the whole day and then drink coffee because they need, not because they like it. Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so that was so it didn't happen. My first maternity leave I didn't do anything, and Gus was a terrible sleeper. And then I got pregnant with Otto, and I thought like, okay, this time I know what to expect. So maybe I should start looking into my own business. And then I remember that Australia brand that I really like it, and I was like, maybe I should look into do the kids clothing thing. And so I was like, okay, I know what to expect. I'm gonna have a newborn at home, but I kind of no, have done that before, so it's easier. But then Otto was born 2 weeks before lockdown in 2020. So I end
Okay.
up at home with a newborn. My husband works in a vet clinic, so the vet clinic was open, so he was working, and I had Gus, who was 2.5, with me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because daycare was closed. So I was like, okay, this is not gonna happen right now. But
Chaos. Yeah.
yeah, but I started doing my research, when I had the time, and I thought that I was like, okay, what do I need to do? So a friend of mine told me about online business course that she has done. And she said, "Oh, it's interesting. You learn a few things, but they create a group on Facebook that is really good for you because it's a lot of it was a course for a woman." And I was like, it's a group of women that are starting their own business, so you kind of get excited, and help each other. So I told the husband, okay, I'm doing it, and at the same time we decided to renovate our house, so it was like a bit chaos, my life at the moment, but I like chaos. I like doing 100 things at the same time. So I said to him, okay, we are doing a kids' clothing. That's the idea. We just need to find a name. So it took us 3 months to find a name. And suddenly we knew what we want to do, but we want a name that reflects, the outdoor idea and the whole thing. So one day during one of the lockdowns, we went for a family walk and we had a chocolate Labrador, and the boys were finding sticks to throw to the dog. And my husband said stick hunters, and I was like, that's the name. When he said the name, I imagined the logo and everything. I was like, okay, let's go home because I need to work. So that's how it started. We create our first prints, and I did all the research like about where to start. I have a few two good friends that are fashion designers, so I was helping, asking questions about, all the new words that I never heard about before. I didn't know the meaning. So they were very nice to me and helped me out. So that's how we started.
Yeah, awesome. So, when you were pregnant with Gus, did you and like just struggling to find these clothes, like between like dinosaurs, trucks, all that sort of thing, did you just like ever imagine that frustration would spark a business?
Uh, I I don't know. I think I thought about like like why people don't do like cooler things. Like husband and I used to surf, so like you don't do like baby stuff like surf related, because if you go buy from one of the big surf brands, I think they start on size 2. So I was like, it's
Mm,
for little babies. There is not like cool, really cool stuff. So I don't remember if I thought about starting a kids brand there, but I remember noticing that there was there was nothing else there.
yeah.
There was not many options. Nowadays there is way more options.
Mm.
But that was like 8 years ago, 8.5 years ago. There was not many options.
Yeah, for sure. So you were talking about like obviously this was a period of time, like this was on your mind like for years before it actually took off or became an actual like vision. When was the moment where it kind of clicked and you were like, "Oh, we're we're actually doing this. This is actually happening."
I think it was when I came back from my second maternity leave. The boys were staying at daycare from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I remember like thinking like, why? Like I didn't have kids to see them 1 hour in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon while I'm cooking dinner and trying to clean the house and talk to my husband that I haven't seen the whole day. I was like, I don't want that. So I want to spend more times with the kids. So that's what like I was like, okay, what can I do? What kind of business can I do? And then I was like, oh, that idea of kids clothing, it's pretty good. I think we can make it work. So I think that's how it started, when I feel that I want, like most moms, you want to spend more time with your kids. You don't want to go and work from 9 to 5 and see them a little bit at the end of the day. So I think that's how things really started. And then I created the logo and everything, and I put on Instagram for all our friends, because then I felt that once you tell everybody, someone is gonna ask you about like, oh, what is
Mm.
that plan? What are you doing about it? Is it true? So you
Yeah.
take a responsibility for it. So I remember like posting it and I said, okay, now it's official. And then I went and registered the company and everything. And I was like, okay, now I need to start paying tax for that. So I need to make money. And I think that's how it became like official, like came from my desire of staying at home with the kids more and doing like things. Because when you work for someone else, you, even though that like I work in a creative field, you kind of, you have to do what the company, wants you to do. And
Yeah.
I want to do whatever I want to do. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I was like, no, yeah. So yeah, that's allowed me to, use all my creativity doing things the way I think should be done.
Mm. So you were talking like earlier, there was obviously like a big transition period. Like there was a lot of different things that were happening all at once, like you moved to Australia, you had like the kid, like, and all that sort of thing. What was it like moving? Like, obviously, you moved to New Zealand and then you've moved to
Yeah.
Australia. What was it like restarting with both your family and your business and everything like that and kind of just starting fresh? What
Yeah.
was that like for you?
I make the joke, I always joke that I was a gypsy in my previous life. I like
Mm,
moving, I spent like 3 years in the same place and I start, okay, it's time to move on. Drives my
yeah,
husband,
time to move.
yeah,
Yeah.
drives my husband insane. But, so we were, so I spent like a year trying to convince him to move, that it was time for us to try something new. And
Mm.
we were a bit worried about the kids because Gus had just started school and Otto had just changed to a new kindy and they were getting used to that. And then I started talking about moving. And we had just renovated our house, made it the way we want. And I was like, why you want to move it? And that's the funny thing. Everybody wants ask us the question and expect that we're gonna complain about something and like a reason,
Mm.
and there is not really a reason. The reason was like apart from the weather. Weather is it's almost June and we have t-shirts here. In New Zealand, you would have a
Yes.
puffer jacket on. So, uh, and my husband said to me, "Okay, after 1 year, trying to convince him, he said we can move, but I'm not learning a new language." And I'm not gonna get a visa. And I said, okay, so we're gonna go to Australia. And then I told my dad, and my dad said, "Oh, okay, but you know that business-wise is a bad move." And I was like, "I know, because that was 2023. That was end of 2023. So beginning of 2023, I left my job that I was hating at the time, and I said to my husband, okay, we are gonna make it work. I'm gonna work full time for Stick Hunters, and it I'll make it work. Doesn't matter how, I'll make it work." And it really started getting a momentum. Like we were doing markets, and the markets were really going really well. And we were having like daily online orders that for a small business is like it's hard. So
Wow.
and then we were in 12 shops, so we were doing wholesale. So we were getting somewhere. And then I said to my dad, I know it's a bad move, but the idea of creating a business is that I can have more time, to enjoy our life, as a
Mm,
family. And now if I'm gonna stay here just because of the business, kind of lose the reason why I started. So I said to him, it's okay. So moving here, you start fresh. And then some days it's hard mentally. Some days we were like, is it, was it really a good decision? Like we love
mm,
here as a family and everything. Business wise, like I went back to work for someone else. So I'm working as interior designer, um, because we have bills to pay, and then it's hard because you compare, like we have been here opening here for like a few months, I don't know, 8 months, maybe less than that, and then you compare to yourself there that you're like almost 3 years there. So I have to remind myself that, we will get there again. We just
mm,
takes time. And we are
yeah.
living in a small town. So the markets here are good, but it's not as good as it was because it's a much smaller place. So you have to
Mm,
remind yourself all the time, like all the things that you cannot control and not just compare to what you had because no, we were gonna get there in time.
yeah.
But for now, some days I'm just like, I don't know what you're doing. Maybe I
Mm.
made a bad decision. And I was like, no, we will get there. Just breathe and keep going.
Yeah, and it's all a process at the end of the day. And I mean, like, small business life is hard for anyone, and um let alone someone that's moving across the ditch,
Yeah,
and starting fresh from there, because essentially, like you had all the designs, and you knew how to run your business, but you still had to essentially start again.
yeah.
um was that Did you find it was very different, um going from NZ to Australia
Uh,
in terms of structure, or was that something that you were able to just fall in the rhythm of?
no, I think like Australia is more, reminds me more of Brazil because you have more bureaucracy. In New Zealand,
Yeah.
everything is so easy. Uh, in Australia, things are more, there's more paperwork to do. It's more tax to pay and more things. So that took me a while to understand. But, you know, other things are very similar. Like now we are thinking about start doing wholesale again. So I'm doing all the research to make sure that, our policies and everything that we had there is gonna work here. And I know trying to find where we want to go and what big fairs and exhibitions to do, and so we need to do some research on that. But apart from that, it's like, and we're still doing like 40% of our online sale is still like from New Zealand customers.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, I'm very grateful for them, like they still support us and they still tagging us on Instagram. And but yeah, it's not too different, but you need to make sure. Sometimes you don't know there's a lot of the standards and the regulations are shared by New Zealand, Australia, New Zealand. But like for our sunnies, every sunglasses sold in Australia need to be certified by the Australian something something something. And in New Zealand, you don't need to. So when we moved here, we had to send our sunnies to be tested, and you get like you need a certain label that needs to go in every pair of sunglasses. So there is a few things that you need to make sure you're doing right. Uh,
Mm.
but yeah, we are getting there, Every night I'm like learning something new.
Yeah, I mean, that's a beautiful mindset to have. Um, your You did mention it before, so you're an interior designer by trade.
Yeah.
How do you come up with your very like nature-esque designs in terms of like your clothing? And do you see any overlap in terms of like that background and your brand?
So I went to architecture school. So
Mm.
there's a few things, like you talk, when you design, you think about textures and scales and proportion and patterns and things like that. So you kind of, understand, you can use that that understanding for any of my works, work as an architect or interior design or clothing design. But I think for me, what I really like in anything I'm designing is like having the user as the focus. So when I'm designing a school, I'm thinking like how the students are gonna use that space, or I'm designing, I don't know, a house, or I'm always trying. And the same thing when I'm designing like kids' clothing, like what the kids really like it. Like my son doesn't like print on the back, because he wanna see the print. So he used the t-shirts. When the t-shirt is like this one, you have the big print on the back, he turns it around because he want to see it. So most of
That's
our
so
t-shirts have the print on the front, because I've heard other moms saying the same thing. And I was like, makes sense, they want to wear the clothes for them to see it.
mm,
Or like I don't really like doing like dresses for little kids, little girls, because when they are crawling, the dress really gets in their way. So it's harder for them.
mm,
So I was like, it's not just about being pretty, it needs to be useful, and So yeah, so I think that's the things you can correlate it, like about the aesthetics of it and being user focused.
Mm. Yeah, that's such a good perspective to see how that, I guess, transferred over in such they're different industries.
Yeah, it
The diff
is. But
but the no, I was just gonna say just the way that it transfers over is just like so cool to see that also being used as well.
yeah, it's interesting. And I went to I have a really good friend. She's a graphic designer. And then one day I went to a presentation and she was talking about, and I was like, you could be talking about architecture or, clothing design, and like it's the ideas behind are very similar.
Yeah, so cool. Um, Taking like a little shift, you've been transparent in the past about producing overseas, but then designing and printing locally. Why was that balance important to you?
Well, being very honest, price
Mhm.
wise, producing overseas is cheaper. My goal is to produce in Brazil, because I'm supporting my people. Um, it's actually cheaper to produce in Brazil than producing in China or Vietnam or. But the
Oh.
flight from Brazil to here, it's very expensive. It's
Mm.
it's getting better. With COVID, everything got very expensive. Now it's getting better. So I'm working with a few Brazilian companies. That's my goal, to produce there or to produce here, but price wise, like especially if you go to wholesale, your margins get very tiny and
Mm.
it's hard. And then the whole thing started because, like, at the moment we have for t-shirts we have 3 colors and 5 prints. So from our manufacturers, they sell, they have a MOQ, a minimum order quantity of 100 shirts per style, per color. So if I want to do 5 prints, 3 colors, 150 um, combinations, and I need to order 100 of each of them. So it's like 1,500 shirts. That for us is like we're never gonna sell, that amount of shirts. So I start order, and that can be like a really good tip if you're thinking about starting a business. We order the shirts, the plain shirts, so it comes with our label, our design, our sizes, and everything. But we just get it plain, and then we find um, person that do screen printing, and we like the screen print because I think the quality is better than when it's like the heat transfer or whatever you call. So, and then he can do as many as I want. I can do like if there's a new print that I don't know if it's gonna work or not, I can have him to do one of each size, and I take to the market and I see how it sells. And then if it sells
Mhm.
well, I can order more of that. Or because in the first time we did, I just tried to guess what was gonna sell more, and I got pretty wrong. you know. Now I think I have a better idea of what is gonna sell better, and but yeah, so I started like that, and at the end of the day, it helps some local people, with a small business like us. We always try to go to a small business. The guy who does here in Harvey Bay for us, like he does his shed, But I can go there. I see him doing. I take the kids with me. The kids ask 1,000 questions, and I know the quality of the print, the ink that he's using. So it's very, it's much easier for me
Mm.
to do that.
Yeah, you talked into like almost like this trial and error sort of thing where you'll like test a product before you actually go and print it. Um, Obviously, you also mentioned that you guessed it before, like you were
Mm.
just like, just give it a go. Is that something you would suggest to, I guess, other small business owners in terms of like how they're trialing their products and seeing if their audience will like it?
Yeah, I think like doing a market is a really good thing because you get real-time feedback, and you can ask questions. Like I know you can do it in social media, and sometimes I do it, but sometimes you want to know why, and you want to expand on that, and you want to try to understand. So um, I learned after trying a few products that didn't sell as well as I was expecting or hoping. Or I think doing, if you can, like I do a lot of samples, now, because sometimes I have this amazing idea and I get it made and arrives, and I was like, not really what I was expecting, or and then I
Mm.
show my friends. I have a group of friends on WhatsApp, and we call like a board meeting, Sticky Hunters boarding meeting. So I put everything there, and they give them opinions, and so it's good to try, because it's everything costs, and for a small business, it's a lot of money. Sometimes you don't have that money, or you're going to take the money from something else to invest in a new product that won't sell you know so
Mm.
I learned my lesson the hardest way. So now, the beginning, I didn't want to do samples, because every sample costs like $100 basically. By the time they do the sample and they ship it to you, it is a lot of money.
Mm.
But it's cheaper than spending $2,000 getting like 50 of the products that won't sell. So yeah, you have
Yeah.
to, you learn. I'm still learning. Sometimes I think it's
Yeah.
amazing, and it's not.
Mm. Well, it's also like, sometimes we have these big ideas, but it's also like what your consumers like as well. And
Yeah, it is.
sometimes that's the most brutal thing as well, because it's like you can put your heart and soul into something, and your consumers might be like, not quite.
Not that, yeah. And I
Yeah.
always show like the prints for my kids and my husband. And it's quite funny. So you ask about the nature inspiration. I think like we are very outdoor. We like going outdoor. We like doing things
Mm.
out of the house, because staying in the house, which gets too noisy, and everybody gets grumpy and gets messy. So the other day I did like a print, and I think I had a polar bear. So I was like, we are at the beach, and there was like someone tagged in the rocks, and that was local owners. And then Gus was asking what was locals, what it means for that. And then we talk about, and then I said, oh, that's a good t-shirt. So I made a t-shirt about that. But I put a polar bear and some random animals, and Gus came to me and said, no, needs to be a shark, a turtle, and something else. So I was like, oh, I was like, you know what? We live by the beach. We live in a city that is famous for the whales. So I was like, yeah, I see your point here. So
Yeah.
they are good. They are honest feedback. Because if
Good business
yeah,
critiques.
but if I ask my husband, I can get grumpy with him, but I cannot get grumpy with the kids.
No, that's so funny. You have talked about in the past that market life was unsettling at
Mhm.
first. How did stepping out of your comfort zone like shape your experience as a business owner?
I am not a people's person. I am terrible with the chit chat. It's really hard for me. It's not my thing. I joke that it's my husband's job. But so the first time I said to my husband, I'm gonna do a market. So we went there, we set up everything, and I remember hating every single second of it. I went back home. I sold three t-shirts that I was excited about it, but I went home and said, that's not for me. I'm never gonna do it that again. But then I was like, wow, but I sold three t-shirts. So after the other day I counted, we have done 117 markets now. And I got better. I learned how to deal with it, how to talk to people. Still, I'm a bipolar person. So there's days and days. Some days I'm really good and like I'm happy, I'm talking to everybody. Some days I just go there and I cannot put my like the headspace. I'm just not in the headspace. And
Yeah.
that happens for different reasons. Something that has happened to you, like I was working 13 days and have one day off and working 13 days. So I was getting very tired, and then that was affecting my market life. The weather was not helping. The sales were not great, and I was losing my motivation, and I just want to go there and read my book. And then I start thinking, well, but if I'm here reading my book, people don't want to talk to me. It's So I said, okay, I'm gonna take a break from the market. So I think in March we took 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks off, and I was like, I need that,
Yeah.
to have the joy of going to the markets again, because I really like going to the markets. You talk to people, you talk to other business owners, and it's a really good. We have a really nice market here in Harvey Bay, like a really nice community. So, but sometimes I'm just not in the headspace, and I
Mm.
learned to accept that. That if I'm fine, I'm fine. If I'm not in the headspace, like for Mother's Day, I went there. It was windy. And I was like, no, it's Mother's Day. I want to spend time with my kids. And Mother's Day is a really bad market for me because everybody's buying presents for their mom. And I was like, I apologize to the market people, but I said, I'm going home. And I went home. I went to see the boys play soccer, and I had most amazing day. So sometimes you just need to accept, like it's hard doing market. Like if you're not like some people, one day the guy next, I haven't sold anything in the market. The guy next to me, he could sell anything,
Mm.
and he convinces. I was packing down. He convinces someone that was walking past to come and buy something from my store.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and I was like, really? Like, how can you do it? Like, doesn't matter how much you try, I will never get that level. But it's good. I learned a few things. He gave me a few after I went to talk to him, and he gave me a few tips. And now I feel, it's something that you learn. It's a way of doing it, a way of talking to people. And, sometimes you just start a conversation, make it like, a comment about something random, and then you start the conversation there. But it's, yeah, because I'm not a people's person, some days I'm just, and I go home and I feel bad. I was like, I felt that I didn't talk to people as the way I should. And then I feel bad,
Mm.
but I was like, okay, it's done. Next market, I will do it better.
Yeah. So it's like, as much as you love your markets, it's important to have boundaries around it, would you say?
Yeah, I think it is. You have to respect yourself, it's even though I think it's with everything in life, even though you love it something very much, some days you're not. It's not a day for that, and you just need to accept that. In market life, it's some days you go there and you sell hips, some days you go there you don't even pay your market fee,
Mm.
and doesn't have an explanation. The weather is beautiful, there's a lot of people, but people are just not buying. And some days it's raining, there is three people walking, and someone walk in and buy three products, and you're happy. So it's, yeah,
Mm.
there is not much. I say that I don't create expectations for the markets. I go there and do my thing, and that's it.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's so cool. So, do you do markets a lot with your family? And like from that, it's your business is obviously in terms of like you got your business critiquers. What is it? Critics. That's the one
Critics,
I'm
yeah.
looking for. At home. So it's a very like family oriented business. So what's it like running things with your family, from your boys, your husband, and even your dog in the mix?
Yeah, it's the whole
Like running,
package.
yeah, it's the whole package deal. What's that like?
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day because Otto is 5, and I have been doing markets for 3.5 years. So he kind of grew up on that, and the boys like it, especially like we do Parisian in Sunshine Coast twice a month or once a month, depends. And it's next door to a playground, it's next door to the beach, and it's next door to the skate park. So the boys are in heaven. My husband surfs, so he's in heaven. The kids are loving it, and we have friends that come and we always have a barbecue after. So the boys are used to it. It's we say, oh, we are doing market somewhere, so we go for the weekend. Like the other day, we did the market in Nusa on a Friday night, and then we took the weekend. We went to the Gold Coast, and so it's always we do something.
Come to my hometown. We're on the Gold
Yeah, I
Coast.
know. We went there to go surfing because my husband wanted to go surfing, and then we saw the was the surfing competition there, so we went to watch that. So for the boys, it's normal. For my
Mm.
husband, as long as I put like fishing or surfing on the mix, he's fine. He will go for it. My dog,
Yeah.
she's like, she has no option. She has to come. And
Yes.
she's an old lady now, so she's fine. She doesn't care about anything. So yeah, the boys, as long as you give them ice cream, they spend. I joke that they spend all my money at the market because they eat the whole day. They get to the market, they start. I'm hungry. I was like, no, you just had breakfast. No, I'm hungry. So they go and spend
Yeah.
all my money on the food trucks. But it's good. They're helping small business. That's why I always tell myself it's fine.
Yes.
They are helping someone else.
You should just get them to try and sell something. You'd be like, you earn your food if you
Yeah,
sell a Like
the,
t-shirt.
yeah. The other day, Gus said to me, "Mom, do you want some help?" And I said, "Okay, I want some help." So he helped me put like the prices and things. And then he looked at me and said, "It's $20." And I was like, "What?" He said, $20 for my help. And I was like, "No, no, 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 no. You need to give me your price beforehand. I can give you $2. $20 is a lot of money." So he took the
Yeah.
$2 and he was like, I said, "Next time, if you want to charge more, you tell me beforehand so I can make my mind if I want your help or not."
If it's worth it, if it's
Yeah,
worth the
it was
fight,
worth it. No, no.
I'm gonna budget it next month.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're learning. So it's good. I was like, oh, that's good. I was like, you're learning, you learn that money doesn't come from nowhere. You need to work to have
Yeah,
that money.
a little business sense going on. Maybe you got an entrepreneur in your
Maybe,
hands.
maybe, who knows?
So, what's something about that they might not realize about the effort behind stick hunters? Like, so you guys are so values led and everything like that. So, what is something that people wouldn't know about stick hunters just looking at face value?
Oh, I think it's not just the sticky hunters, it's all this small business. People don't realize how much work it is behind the scenes, how much time it takes, how much energy, like especially like social media. Like sometimes I'm like, I'm over the social media thing. I don't want to do anything. But I was like, well, people need to know and see you, so you go it. And it's no, and it's like a market is not just going there and doing the market. It's like all the packing up the night before, and then it's going home and unpacking, and washing. Like we have curtains around our gazebo, so we're washing the whole thing.
Mm,
It's a lot of little things. Like for example, like our clothes. When we get our clothes, our manufacturer, the the hang tag comes with like a plastic thing, that they clip it because it's faster for them to clip that. But I don't want the plastic thing. So they said, oh, if you want us to use, I want to like on a cotton string. And they said, oh, with a knot at the end. And they said, oh, if you want to do that, it's like 10 cents per hang tag extra. So I was like, I'm not paying it. I will do it. So I said, send it without the hang tags, and now or send just the hang tags without the string, and I will put. So every time we get a new order, I get my friends. Thank you, friends. They come and they help me to hang every single one and knot, give it like a little knot. So it's a lot of little things that people don't realize how much work it is.
yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's just like definitely like, and kind of just compiles as well. Like it could even, there's a lot of big things, but there's also a lot of
Small
small
things.
things that just build up
Yeah, it is. It's
and
um,
takes.
it's more than you know, every single thing you do. It's a lot of work behind the scenes. But it's good
Mm,
because it makes you appreciate other people's business, and you're like, wow, you see someone, I don't know, selling something, you're like, oh, it's just not, going and making this. It's a lot of work behind the scenes.
yeah. And you can just have a new lens and viewing, especially like you'd see it at the markets as well. Like you're just going through and looking at everyone's stalls, and it's
Yeah,
just like,
it is. And it was like, and then you see that all that work, like it's gonna reflect in the price. It's anyway, like, and
mm,
I know why I'm paying a little bit more, because it's a lot of effort that this person is put on it, and like it's a lot of extra. I say that when I go to the markets, I pay myself with a coffee. That's my payment. Because if I think
yes,
about um, my hourly rate, it's nothing. I'm gonna work for 5 cents an hour. So I was like, but you have to you understand why things are more expensive, when you buy from a small business, you buy from like your local market, because it costs more, like if you buy from one of these big shops, like they don't even see the piece, that they are ordering. There are thousands of something that they don't even see it. We see every single piece, we check them, we pack them. It is a lot of things behind the scenes that you don't realize until you. I think everybody should have a small business for a period of time, just for so you value. Next time you go to a market or you buy something from a small business, you say, "Oh, okay, I'll pay $5 more or $10 more because of that."
It's a labor of love.
It is.
That's the best way I can describe it. But speaking on that labor of love, you've obviously been part of the like this journey of like joy and adventure through all these families and through your clothing. What has been the most meaningful piece of feedback that or moment that you've even had with one of your customers?
I have a lot of like grandmothers that comes by, for the first grandkid, and I think that's very exciting. But I have one specific couple. This lady came, and she didn't look pregnant, because I always like give a little look to try to guess. And she
Yeah.
spent like a film, like I don't know, she spent like 10 minutes, just looking things, and I was like, okay. And then the husband came and they talk. They were, I don't know, they were from overseas. They were talking another language. And I was like, and then he looked around and then she kept like looking and he left and she was there. And then she said to me, "Oh, sorry for it taking so long." And I said to her, like, "Take your time. I'm fine. I'm gonna be here for hours." And
Mm.
and then I asked if she needs some help. I asked if she was buying for someone in specific, and she said, "Oh, it's for us. It's a we are expecting a baby, and that's gonna be the first outfit we're gonna buy." And I was like, "How special it is that from the whole planet she could buy anything. She chose my little stall in the market to buy her first outfit." And I was like, I almost cried. And I remember like when I went to buy my first, like just first out, first clothes that I bought from him, I'm like, how special is that? And every time like I think about it, I'm almost crying because I think it's so special. You be part of that moment, somehow and someone. And every time like I see a kid wearing one of my clothes, or my friends see one of my friends see a kid and they take a photo like and they send to me like, "See that kid over there is wearing one of your hats." And I was like, it always makes me happy. But that special lady, I thought it was a very special moment.
Oh, beautiful. Wow. That's so touching. That was oh, oh, I'm like honestly I'm speechless. That was beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's such a cool thing to be part of that like
it is.
and yeah, like it's such a special moment, like they probably just found out, and then
Yeah,
they're like,
they were like, probably like I was one of the first people to know about it. And like I
yeah.
have my kid's first outfit in a little frame in the bedroom. And I was like, that's gonna be like forever. The first photo, everything is gonna be like that little outfit. And I thought it was very special.
Oh, that's gorgeous. To finish us up today, I'd love, well, this could be very vague, but I was going to say, what is a print that you'd love to create but just haven't had the chance to yet, if you can even think of anything?
Hmm, I don't know. I have a list on my phone because I'm walking, I'm seeing something, and I was like, "Oh, that's a good print," and then I write down. So I have a list of things. I don't know what I want to create. I want to do like more nature prints,
Mm,
because it's very important to me. Like, like all this outdoor, play, and I think that's very important for the kids, especially nowadays. And so I want to do more prints that reflect that. That's our whole idea. Like most of our prints reflect that. But I want to
mm,
do like something about like playing outdoor. And we have one of the prints that is like our favorite toys, and there's a lot of nature things, like sand and rocks and things. And that's a very popular one. So I want to do a few more related to that, because I think when you see a painting like in your conscience, like you think about, like, oh, someone to might help to promote, the outdoor play and the importance of the outdoor play to little
Mm.
kids.
Oh, I love that. Well, I'm so excited for you to create those prints because that will be the cutest thing ever. Um, I'm just gonna do a quick outro, but it was such a pleasure to chat with you about your business. Um, yeah, and just the heart and family that like really is at the center and the core of your business. I just think it's so
It
beautiful.
is, it is, yeah, it's,
So thank you for sharing about it.
sorry?
Thank you so much for sharing
Ah,
about it and
thank you guys
vulnerable.
for having me. I need to send a kiss to my kids because they're gonna be listening, and they said I told them about it, the podcast, and they said, "Are you gonna send us like a message?" So I said, "I will send you a kiss at the end, and one from my husband. Otherwise, he's gonna divorce me."
No, I love that. All right. Well, thanks for joining episode 3 on season 2 of the Aussie podcast. Um, oh, Sam, you're incredible. We love this. We love you guys. And tune in for the next episode because it's a load of fun. Anyway, see
Thank
you
you,
later, guys.
guys.